Today, we're jumping into a story from the Gospel of Matthew that pretty much flips our whole idea of fairness on its head. It's a parable that's designed to make us feel a little bit uncomfortable, to really challenge what we think we know about work, rewards, and what it means to be good. So let's just get right to it with a question. Picture this. You've put in a long, hard 10-hour day, sweating, grinding it out. Then your boss pays the guy who just showed up for the last hour the exact same amount of money as you? Is that fair? Seriously, think about it. Hold on to that gut reaction, because that's the very heart of the story we're about to unpack. All right, so let's set the scene. The story kicks off with something pretty normal for that time. A landowner goes out first thing in the morning to hire some guys to work in his vineyard. You can just imagine the scene. A marketplace buzzing with laborers, all hoping to get picked for a day's work. Now, this next part is key. The landowner makes a deal with that first group for a denarius. And a denarius wasn't just some random amount. It was the standard, completely fair wage for a full day of labor. Everyone knew it. It was a solid, just deal. So the agreement is set and everyone's on the same page. But here's where it gets interesting. The landowner doesn't stop there. He comes back at 9 a.m. and hires more people, just telling them he'll pay whatever is right. He does it again at noon and again at 3 p.m. Then, get this, at 5 p.m., with only about an hour of daylight left, he hires one last group. These were the guys who'd been standing around all day, totally overlooked. So you've got this massive difference in hours worked. So the sun goes down, the workday's over, and the owner tells his manager, all right, time to pay everyone. But he gives this really weird instruction. Start with the last ones I hired and pay them first. This is where the whole story just takes a sharp turn. The men who work for just 1 hour come up to get their pay, and each one is handed a denarius, a full day's wage. Can you imagine being in that first group watching this happen? You'd be doing the math in your head thinking, whoa, if they got a full denarius for 1 hour's work, I'm going to get a huge bonus for my 10 hours. You're expecting a big payout. But they don't get more. They get exactly what they agreed to, 1 denarius. And their reaction is, well, it's totally human, isn't it? They start grumbling, pointing out what seems like a massive injustice. We worked all day in the scorching sun, they say, and you've made these guys who worked for 1 hour equal to us. They felt cheated. Not because they were underpaid, but because someone else got a dose of generosity they didn't. And this moment, this complaint, brings us to the absolute core lesson of the whole parable. You see, this story isn't really about wages at all. It's about 2 completely different ways of looking at the world. The world system, which is based on merit, versus the kingdom system, which is based on grace. Let's break this down because it's so important. In our world, the system of merit is what we know. Reward is based on effort. The more you do, the more you get. It's all about proportion. But in the kingdom, it's all about grace. The reward isn't based on your performance. It's based entirely on the generosity and goodness of the giver. Fairness here isn't about what you've earned, it's about what the giver decides to give out of the goodness of his heart. The landowner's response is just so powerful. First, he reminds them of the deal. He says, friend, I'm not doing you any wrong. Didn't we agree on a denarius? But then he gets to the real heart of the issue. He asks, or is your eye evil because I am good? Which is like saying, are you upset because I'm generous? He completely reframes it. The problem isn't his unfairness, it's their jealousy of his goodness to other people. And that brings us to this famous, upside-down conclusion. In the kingdom of God, our human ideas of merit, status, and what we deserve, they're all set aside. Why? So that grace can win the day. The people who look like they're last in the world's eyes, the latecomers, the overlooked, they're made first by this radical act of generosity. Now, you would think that after hearing a story that powerful, the lesson would sink in deep. But what happens next in Matthew's gospel is almost comical, and it shows just how hard it is for us to let go of our desire for status. I mean, immediately after Jesus tells this parable, the mother of 2 of his closest disciples, James and John, comes right up to him. And what does she ask? She asks for the top spots for her sons, the seats of honor and power. They'd heard the story about the last will be first and immediately went back to asking, so how can we be first? They totally missed the point. And it wasn't just them. When the other 10 disciples heard about this request, they were furious. But the Bible suggests their anger didn't come from some humble place. Nope, it was pure jealousy. They were worried that James and John were about to get a leg up on them in the race for the best seats in the kingdom. Everybody was still stuck in that mindset of merit and rank. So Jesus gathers them all together and lays out this revolutionary 3-step path to what real greatness looks like. First, he says, you have to reject the world's model of power, which is all about lording it over other people. Second, if you want to be great, you have to become a servant. And third, if you really want to be first, you have to take the lowest possible position and become a slave to everyone else. It's completely backward from how we think. And then he gives them the ultimate example, himself. He, the Son of Man, didn't show up demanding to be served. He came to serve. His whole purpose wasn't to grab power for himself, but to give it away, even giving up his own life. This is the logic of that landowner in the vineyard, lived out to the absolute fullest. So we end up right back where we started, with a question for you to think about. The parable shows us our value isn't based on our performance, but on a crazy, unearned grace. And the teaching right after tells us that true greatness isn't about climbing a ladder, but about lifting others up. So if that's all true, if greatness isn't about what you earn, but about what you give, what does that change for you?